Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. We are so excited to have you here today, wherever you are in the world watching us. Thank you so much for taking the time. Our goal is to provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. This is the Listening Mentor Show, where we provide tips, experiences, information to help you have the most effective relationships that you can, starting with yourself. I'm our host, and I'm joined by the star of our show. Her name is Caroline Heward. She's known as the Harley Street Stress Expert, and she helps people bust their stress. She's also our resident in-house therapist here at USA Global TV and Radio. She's helped me tremendously. Let's welcome her to the program. Hello.
Woohoo! Hello.
How are things there in the UK?
It's wet and rainy. I was going to say wet and rainy.
So no giant blanket and fuzzy slippers?
Well, right now, it's not too bad because I had quite a nice hot shower before I came down. So I'm feeling quite warm. But it's very wet and cool and drizzly and very British weather.
Before we get into the show, when is it actually nice there?
We had a nice day yesterday.
Is it like a couple of months when it's really nice, or just typically not the best weather?
Well, we're lucky when it is nice for a few days or maybe a week, and then the rain hits again. So that's why the British are so fascinated and topical about the weather, because our weather changes. We don't have like a whole few months of summer and a whole few months of autumn and winter. So we're expecting it. So that's why the Brits, when we come out, when the sun's out, we strip everything off, and then we're like sort of trying to get some sun.
It's so funny. As you know, we have a number of Brits who are on our platform, and I never understood. They're always talking about the weather. I'm like, what is up with the weather? It's sunny, it's sunny, it's sunny. So
it's not. It goes up and down, and that's why we talk about it. And you'll know every British man, and I say that because that's the cliche, every British man will always carry an umbrella with them because they never know when it's going to rain.
Interesting. I guess that's good etiquette and manners as well.
Yeah.
So, Caroline, before we get into the topic, I'd love to have you share with our audience. You do a number of things here. You're one of our expert presenters on Talking Heads. You'll be starting again next week. And you're also hosting A Woman's Prerogative and this show. Tell us how you are helping people bust their stress.
Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. Well, I help you in all sorts of ways. If you suffer with physical stress, anxiety, so mental stress, anxiety, depression, stress in terms of mental stress. If you are suffering with behavioral symptoms such as relationship issues, anger management. So it's however it shows up for you, physical, emotional, mental, or behavioral. I help you identify the root cause. And what I mean by that is when it first started. So your stress will manifest regularly in the way that you recognize, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, or behavioral, it will keep manifesting in the same way. And it's a repeat pattern. I help you identify the root cause, which literally breaks through the pattern that creates your continuing stress, and the emotions released and you feel amazing. And it also creates a very deep and restful sleep.
Oh, everyone likes to have a nice night's sleep, right? So important. And so is our topic today. We're talking about navigating parent-child communication. And it's interesting because today, earlier, I went out for a walk and it looked like grandparents. I'm not sure today, you can't really tell, but a very young child, a toddler, and then two adults. And all I heard from the two adults was, don't do that. Stop doing this. You're going to get in trouble. I'm going to punish you. Stop. No. I thought, oh my gosh, so much negativity. I don't know. Maybe this is the way that things work. That when you're dealing with children at a very young age, you just constantly knock them down and tell them not what to do, what to not do. I don't know. But tell us a little bit about the foundation to have a good relationship between a parent and a child.
Well, this is a really interesting analogy in terms of what you've experienced, what you've witnessed, because this is what we do. We tend to say what we don't want. And I want to approach that first. We do see that parents, grandparents will generally say, don't put your hand in the mud, don't eat the mud, don't go into the garden when it's raining. And so there is a lot of don't do. The child, especially the very young baby, will just keep going ahead and doing it. And then the parent gets very upset saying, you don't listen. And the reason for that is the mind does not hear don't. It doesn't hear do not. So what the mind is hearing is run in the rain, go in the rain, eat the mud, go and play in the puddles. So when you're saying don't play in the puddles, the mind, the baby is hearing play in the puddles, and they get very confused because they're doing what they think you want them to do. And then they kind of get confused because they can see that you're not happy. And so then they work out that they have to take everything that you say the opposite way. So they start to behaviorally get confused because they're doing what they think you want them to do, but actually you want them to do the opposite. So the way to communicate is simply by saying what you want them to do. And we generally will say things like, don't run across the road. What we really should be saying is, now, when the green man flashes, this is in the UK, I'm not sure if it's the same in all the countries, but when the green man flashes, hold my hand and walk slowly with me across the road. But that's too much to say. So we short circuit it and say, don't run across the road. So that's the big thing about making sure that you communicate in the positive. And that is how we should be communicating all of the time, that it shouldn't be a should, must, have to. It should actually be a choosing. I will, I choose, I can. So it's positive language. That we tend to be hearing quite negative language, and then we get confused. I know this is quite deep, actually. You asked me a very deep question to begin with.
Of course, what else would you expect from me? By the way, I have never heard the green man before.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, see, I wasn't sure. I never knew because we're at different opposite sides of the pond. In the UK, we have a light system, a traffic light system.
Traffic lights. That's what we call it, traffic lights.
And for the walk crossings, when you can actually walk across, you press the button, and it's red when the cars are running, and it actually goes to a green flashing man, which means that you can walk.
I love it. We have a white flashing man.
Ah.
It's white, or I think it's yellow when you're not supposed to cross. Interesting. I think that makes more sense, red and green. Maybe the bulbs are more expensive. I don't know.
Don't we find some interesting things to talk about?
Well, we're always learning. I like it. So what I'm taking away from what you just shared is that when we put it into the negative, our mind is really changing it into a positive.
Well, it doesn't hear don't. And because we're saying don't do this, don't do that, it's not hearing the don't. It just hears the thing that you're saying not to do. So if you're saying don't run across the road, the mind is hearing run across the road.
Yes.
So it's the don't. And so when somebody's chastising a child, saying, don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other, they're going to just do it. And that's why you get that little comedy thing going on that, well, it's a comedy thing when you're looking at it, but it's also upsetting too.
Yes.
I want to share something with you. I was actually on a training course, and on an NLP training course, back in 2007, I think it was. And I went out for lunch with one of the students. And when we found a restaurant, we were sitting outside because it was really nice and warm. And so we sat outside having a sandwich. And there was a couple the tables were all very close together. There was a couple pretty much right next to us. And she kept saying, how many times have I told you, don't do that? It irritates me. And then he did something else. I don't know what he was doing. And then she said, don't do that. I've told you, that really irritates me and I don't like it. And every now and again, every few minutes, she was saying to him, you're really upsetting me. Don't do that. That really irritates me. Don't do that. Don't do this. And I felt very compelled. I had to stop myself from saying, just tell him what you want him to do. And because we were on a training course, we were seeing in action how even adults are saying what they don't want to see, and yet the mind doesn't know it doesn't acknowledge it. So you just keep doing it. And that's why you get it even in adults. It's not just children, it's adults too.
I love that you shared that because it relates back to something else that you said a long time ago, and I've never forgotten about it. When someone asks you a question, typically we might give, for example, when are you available? Well, I'm not available at this time and that time, because I used to do that. And you're not giving any information that they can work with. Answer the question. So I guess what you're saying is the same thing. Tell the person what you do want, not what you don't want. And here's another question that I still feel is a challenging one, is where do you want to go for dinner? I don't care. I don't want to go to this. Well, where do you want to go? Well, I don't know. Can you just make the decision? I don't want to say why, but what happens in our brain that we automatically go to everything that we don't want? Like if you're looking for a partner, I don't want him to be this. I don't want him to be that. What do you want? Well, I don't really know.
Well, what happens is, these are really good questions.
Thank you.
What happens is that the brain, the mind, it first of all focuses on what you don't want. And that comes up first. So, for instance, I'm going to give the example of what do you want for Christmas? So it's a couple and the partner says, what do you want for Christmas, hun? And she will say, well, I don't want this and I don't want that and I don't want the other. And I've got too many of those and I'm not interested in those. And then if he's patient, he will listen. And then if he's really, really patient and he's actively listening, he will say, what would you like for Christmas? And then she might say, well, I've got two of these and I've got two of those. So I've got too many of this. And my mother-in-law is going to buy me this. And my father-in-law is going to buy me this. And then when she's exhausted, he might be still very patient and say, what would you like for Christmas, hun? And then she will turn around in the third time and say, oh, do you know, I saw an advert and it was advertising this whizzy fandangle thing that would be great for my computer. And I saw this hair rolling set that was heat without rollers. And I'd quite like to do that because it takes less time to do my hair. And so you have to exhaust the mind of the negative, because the first thing that you do is focus on what you don't want. And it is a little bit of a trained thing. And when young children, when they are focused in the positive, so for instance, if there's young children that have musician parents or actor parents, they will automatically play an instrument or sing, because there isn't that negative language about you can't do this, you're not good enough to sing, you're not good enough to act. There's none of that going on. And you find that musicians and actors will create musicians and actors and actresses of their children, because it's innate for them they see their family doing things, and so they copy, because children copy.
I just have to say the use of the word whizzy. I've never heard that. I love it. I want to come over there and just learn how to speak English the way that you do. It's absolutely beautiful. So from what you just shared, I think that's interesting that it's the third time and you have to be patient. What if on the other end, you know exactly what you want and the person says, well, I'm not getting you that. What else do you want? And you have 3 or 4 things and they say no, 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 and no. And then you say, well, why did you ask? Well, because I want to get you something that you want. Well, I told you what I want. Well, I'm not getting those things.
It might be, whoa, they'll try me tonight. It might be budget. Is the reason why they're not getting it. And especially in our current times, there is cost of living crisis, dare I say it, and it is not just in one country, it is in a global situation, in terms of price rising for all sorts of things, living, energy prices, goods, shopping. It's become very prevalent globally, especially in the Western world. And so it might be budget, it might be time to actually get what you are looking for. And it might also be that they don't agree. They don't want to buy you that thing because they don't agree with spending money on that particular item. Or it might just be that they've got experience of somebody using that item that you want to have as a present, and it was irritating. It might be a game, sort of a game station that irritated them as a child. So it could be lots of different things, and it's important, I feel, to ask the person, well, what's your objection? What is it that makes you not want to purchase these items? Is it budget? Is it that you won't have? Oh, also time as well. They might not have the time to go and find what it is that you want, and it might just be that they turn around and say, "Well, if you want that, go and get it yourself."
Oh yeah, you're singing my tune now. I've definitely heard that. And also what it could be, and this really relates to parent and children relationships as well, because maybe your partner or the person who's asking this thinks that whatever it is that you want is a waste of their money. So they want to buy you something, but they don't believe that you should have the diamonds or you should have the $500 perfume or you should have the Chanel bag or whatever the case might be. It could be the same thing in a parent-child relationship. The child knows exactly what they want. They saw Billy had XYZ or Susie had whatever doll set and they want it, but the parent wants to buy books. So how do you set the table, so to speak, from an early age so that children and parents, I don't understand how that works. How do you solve that issue of wants versus needs and budget?
Well, it's about being honest. It's about having a very honest, frank, we call it a frank conversation, and you come down to the level of the child, because the child doesn't know what's going to be expensive or what your objections are. They just see all their friends in that particular trainer and you're buying a much cheaper trainer, and for them they're going to be seen as uncool, but the parent doesn't know what they're going to be subjected to in terms of how they're showing up in their clothes, in their shoes. And so it's important to have an appreciation from both sides, so to come down to their level, literally, if the child's only 3 foot, to actually kneel down and speak to the child so that you're eye to eye, and speak in a softer voice so that they're not feeling frightened to express what they feel they need to express. And you can also express in the same way the reasons why this wouldn't be a good idea in terms of what you want to buy for them versus what they want, because, as you say, wants and needs are different. If they need a new pair of trainers, then I remember my my mum, who's the nanny of my brother's children. She was asked by one of my nephews. He was saying he wanted £100. I think it was £150 pair of trainers, and my mum said, "I'm not doing that." And that's because her approach to buying trainers is maybe £20. Even she's at the stakes in terms of what she's seeing these types of things are. And so it's about mutual understanding and mutual awareness, and maybe a contribution, maybe that, depending on how old the child is, that they do some chores to earn some pocket money towards buying what they want to have.
I think, even though I don't have any children, that it's interesting to teach children from an early age that you're not always going to get everything that you want. So when we talk about communication, there's also the silent treatment.
Oh, yes. In England, we call it sending them to Coventry. And I don't know where that came from.
And Coventry is a place, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I don't know where it came from, but as a child, I always remember, because children will do this with family members as well as in school, and I think it's still a phrase that children, especially if there's sort of been a dispute, friendship breakup, the other children won't speak to them, and I think it's still a known cliche. Oh, we've sent them to Coventry. And, I don't know where it came from. I lived in Birmingham at the time. I don't know whether, why it was that place, but essentially that's the silent treatment. And it's a way of punishing the other person so that they feel a guilt, a shame, because if you don't speak to them and you're not acknowledging them, then they can't interact with you. And so then you can't find a solution, you can't find a way of moving forward. And so having the silent treatment is not really very nice. And for instance, I'm thinking about in prison terms, when somebody's actually put into solitary confinement, for instance, they're essentially being put into a forced silence in terms of their environment. So no contact with anybody, no conversation, which is taking away an experience of sensory interaction, which causes some challenges for the person in terms of their own behavior and their feeling, their emotions.
Sorry, I'm sitting here thinking about what you said, and I forgot I have to produce a show. Yes. So the silent treatment can be a useful tool in some cases. Yes or no?
It depends on, how long for. If you send somebody to Coventry, and I'm going to use that expression because that's what I grew up with. If you give the silent treatment to somebody and send them to Coventry for sort of a week as a child, that's a long time. And it's like a punishment. If you give the silent treatment because you're processing and you're trying to work out how to respond, that's where you've retreated. And then what happens is that's what I would call one of the control dramas, where we're stealing energy. And when you retreat into a silence, and we call that in therapy terms that it's like you retreat back into your cave. What happens is when you retreat in terms of your silence and your responses and your reactions to the other person, what will happen is it will then produce somebody that's going to keep coming at you, sort of almost chasing you and interrogating you with questions. Why are you giving me the silent treatment? What have I done? Why are you so unhappy? What's upset you? What did I do that's upset you? And so there's this sort of what I would call an interrogation where they want to know, because it's not very nice. It makes them feel very uncomfortable. And this is the way that the person that's taken the course of action in terms of silent treatments will be gaining energy, stealing energy from the other person. And so every person that does that will actually be taking energy, draining energy from the other person, instead of literally coming together and having a conversation about what's not working.
And if one person is saving their energy and the other person is constantly asking the questions, they're exuding their energy, and they're going to, so you have two people really feeling they're on different levels.
Yeah.
And what about when you have a child who's always crying? You know, some children don't cry, some children do cry. And then let's say you're in an airplane and your baby's screaming and crying, and there's really nothing you can do. And then as children get older, we've seen this also, kids throwing their toys on the plane and acting completely out of control. So are there certain things that parents can do, the mother can do while she's still pregnant, that can have any impact? I know there's some kind of music that you can belt or something, and this might be out of left field, but let me know if it's whizzy.
Well, these are really, really powerful questions, because if the mother is stressed or anxious during the pregnancy, then the baby actually inherits that stress and that anxiety, because the baby is feeding from the mother and being nutritionalized from the mother in terms of what she's eating and also her emotions. And so if she's in a volatile situation, so for instance, let's take the worst case scenario, if the mother is being abused and in an abusive relationship, then when the baby comes to full term, the baby will have an anxiousness. And so there is many mothers that say, you know, don't get stressed when you're pregnant, you know, relax, take it easy, because it has an impact on the baby, because it feels, and it actually starts to feel that antagonism, starts to feel that anxiety, and starts to feel all the things that you're experiencing, because there's a connection, you know, you are connected together. And when the child is born, then the child then is trying to work out what's happening and why they're feeling like that. Now, taking that one step further, if a baby's crying, usually they're crying for different reasons. It might be that they're hungry. It might be that they need changing. It might be that they need a cuddle. It might be that they need to be loved. And the mother bond, as well as the father bond, they have to know what to do. And there is some school of thought that if a baby is crying, you just leave them crying. But if that happens, and there is many different analogies of different schools of thought on this, that you shouldn't keep picking up the baby when they're crying, because then that's teaching them that they can just throw a tantrum or cry and then they get love. And so it's important to balance that. If you're leaving a baby alone for many hours and they're just screaming and crying, the baby will feel abandoned and they will feel no emotional connection, and that will develop into trust issues, as well as the fact that there will be a drop in their emotions and intimacy, because they will feel afraid to connect because they haven't been experiencing that connection. And so in adulthood, when they get older, they're very, very pressed in their emotions, and they will be untrusting, as well as feeling very emotionally deprived, and they will find it very difficult to let somebody in because they weren't let in when they were a child.
That's really a fine line, because I was thinking that as you were talking about, you know, going in and cuddling the baby and coddling, I guess is the word. And then the other side is just let them scream their lungs out, and it seems like no one's coming to care for them. So what's the right amount of time?
Well, it's knowing, you know, the baby is very sensory. And so usually they're crying for something because there's no mind in the baby. There's only sensory, and it's very surviving. It's, I need feeding, I need a drink, I need changing, or I just want to feel loved. I just want to know that somebody's there. And if the mother or the father is feeling stressed or anxious, the baby will pick that up. So if they're screaming at each other, if they're arguing at each other, the baby will actually pick that up and start feeling anxious. And they might cry because they want to feel safe. And so there will be different reasons and you have to work it out as the parent as to what the baby needs. But it's very basic. It's not that they're trying to analyze anything. It's the way that they're feeling. And I personally don't think that it's a great idea to leave a young baby screaming for hours on end, because there's something not right. There's something wrong, and they need something. And as a mother, as a father, you need to work out what it is that they need so that they feel safe and secure. And it's very basic. Their needs aren't analytical. They're very basic. And just from that place, then they will feel safe. And that's the important thing for a baby, to feel safe and loved.
That is such a pivotal word, the word safe, because as you know, I interview many people, and even myself, there's been a majority of my life when I've not felt safe for one reason or another. And it could possibly stem back from when we're babies. So that's really interesting to think about where it all starts. And if, as adults, if it was that easy, I wish we could just have like a check off: needs to be fed, needs to be changed. Here it is. It's number 3. Instead of, how can I help you? What do you need, when we don't really know what we need ourselves?
Well, that's the whole point of it all, that there is no mummy and daddy school. We all have to learn. And I remember, when I was a child, that my mum and dad, I feel, did the best that they possibly could. I remember my mum saying, there's no mum and dad school. We just do what we can, and we do what we can that we think is right. And as the years evolve, I certainly can see that there is much more understanding now than what there was when I was born, for parents to look at how they're treating their child and how they're looking after their child. And the things that we used to do when we were children are not now acceptable. I used to run around, and I used to go out to the park, which was a good 10 minutes walk up the road, on my own. I used to play on the swings and the slides. Now that's not deemed to be safe or sensible. And children are in the back garden and still watched, which I couldn't handle that, So we had a lot of freedom, and now it's deemed to be not as safe as it was when I was growing up as a child. And this is where, we've evolved as a human race, and also we've devolved because there's lots of things that make it unsafe for our young children.
Thank you, Caroline. I have one more question for you, which I think is probably a very big discussion. So maybe you can just touch on it. So when we are thinking about having a child, what about the communication that we have with our partner? What if that communication is very confrontational, argumentative, etc., and then the child is going to be brought into a situation where people are literally bickering at each other?
Then they will learn that they're like a sponge, and they soak everything up, and they will see that that's how it's supposed to be, because they won't see right or wrong. They will just think that's the way that relationships are. And if the parents are always arguing and bickering, they might actually decide not to get married, because if that's what it is, I don't want it. And so it's where they're learning about relationships. And if there's lots of arguing and shouting, they will probably in turn shout and argue with other people within their own peer group, with their friends, with their external peer group in terms of any activities that they do, like church gatherings or different clubs that they belong to. So they will just repeat the behavior. We are the sum of our behaviors within our environment unless we go out and experience different behaviors.
I don't know where this expression comes from, but monkey see, monkey do.
That's right. That's exactly it. That is exactly right. That whatever we see, because we're not analyzing anything as a young baby, we're seeing and we're learning by seeing and experiencing without understanding. And, you know, monkey see, monkey do is just perfect, because the monkey doesn't have much of a brain. And yet, you know, there is, if there's a banana that's dangling down from the tree, and the baby monkey is seeing that the mummy monkey is running up the tree to get the banana, then baby monkey will do the same. You know, it seems, it is laughable, and at the same time, this is how humans are. We learn from our external environment, and also we learn and understand how to respond from all the people that are surrounding us. So when I was 5 years old, I went to church. So I had not only my family environment, I had my church environment as well. And I did a lot of growing up in church in terms of being in the choir and in the youth club at church. My mum actually thought that I might become a nun because I spent so much time in church. So I had another peer group. I had another stimulus that was showing me different behaviors. And so when we're young, we're very malleable and very pliable, and we will literally mold and soak in everything. And so my advice, my invitation is to give your baby, your child, as much love, emotion, connection, and support, and really have that very deep connection. And it comes from you. When you have a deep connection in you, then you can pass that on to your baby. And be emotionally interactive and listen, because different cries, they might have different cries for different things. They might have a happy cry. I've frequently spoken to little children in a supermarket, and they've been bawling and screaming, and I've just said, oh, what a lovely face, and that's a big voice. You know, you can't be upset, you're spoiling your face. And then they laugh. And I think it's just that they need that interaction. And it could be for attention, that saying that means that if I cry and bawl, I get love.
Absolutely. And on the other end of it, if you see an older person and they have a scowl, maybe they're lonely. Maybe they're in pain. Maybe they want someone to talk to. So you never know. But what I do know is that you've delivered another outstanding episode. Thank you. And
we can't be at the end.
We're at the end of the show already. So Caroline, by the way, congratulations. Tell our audience about your LinkedIn. You've had a lot of engagement from people. I saw that. And you should be very proud, because you do a ton of effort for social media. So tell people how they can reach you, and specifically about LinkedIn and what's been going on there.
Oh, thank you. You can reach me by email, nomorestress@live.co.uk, or you can call me on +44 if you're international. If you're local, 07523 120 189. What's happening at LinkedIn, it's very interesting. I wasn't really a big LinkedIn fan because there's a lot of things that I haven't filled in, like all the jobs, because I used to be in marketing and that's not relevant to where I am now. And so I was a bit resistant. But what I've done is I've slowly, every week I've posted the shows, and I've posted different things that are of interest that I've seen. And what's happened is that I'm being seen from other people, and LinkedIn actually is quite a professional platform, as opposed to Facebook is much more social and a bit more informal. LinkedIn is much more formal, and so I'm being seen by a lot of people in different professions. And what's really fascinating about the stats on LinkedIn is that actually gives you the impression. So how many times your post has had an impression. And just last week, I think if I remember rightly, it was 466 or 33 impressions on my posts. And it actually gives me the top posts of last week. That's just in a week. And so this is a really good way to show up and be seen, and also to be available so that people can find out about you and contact you about your services. So I'm really pleased, because I'm now a bit of a convert. Even though it wasn't my preferred platform, I'm actually getting lots of engagement in terms of impressions.
Woohoo! Fantastic. Tell us who you can help and how they can reach out.
So I help anyone that is suffering with any type of stress. So whether it's physical, so aches and pains, emotional, behavioral, so relationship issue, an issue with a work colleague, or a breakdown in a relationship, or a bereavement issue. So it's whatever is causing you to not sleep or feel stressed, out of sorts, out of balance. And I help you break through the patterns that are creating your repeat experiences of stress. And I do that through a really simple process using chakra psychology and root cause therapy. I'm also an NLP master practitioner and a master hypnotherapist, amongst lots of other things, and an energy healer. And so I intuitively pull on lots of different resources to help you. And it's a very quick and easy process where you feel relaxed, because when you're stressed, it's very much in the mind. And when the mind calms, you reconnect back to your heart and you feel more peaceful and get an incredible sleep. And you can reach me, you can find me on Facebook, and you can also follow me on LinkedIn, as I mentioned earlier, and of course, reach out to me on email or my number.
I feel incredibly relaxed myself right now, so thank you for that.
That's what it is. It's a therapy. This is a transmission.
It is.
You ask me lots of questions, and it's, and I think it's important to say before we do close out, especially to the people that are here on the live or on the replay, that we haven't rehearsed this. I don't know what the questions are. I don't know what you're going to ask me. I'm literally here on the spot answering each of your questions as you ask them without any script. And so this is almost like a therapy session in itself. So it's important for viewers to know that there is no script behind this. This is as it comes. It's completely live, which is why occasionally I might sort of say, oh, you're really on it. Because we do some deep and meaningful conversations here.
Yes, we do. And just to tag on to that, I don't know what I'm going to ask you. So I'm just following the conversation, whatever comes to mind. So excellent work as always, Caroline. Before we go, I do want to share our latest numbers, which are not even the latest. I have it right here. So on our journey to reach 100,000 subscribers as of today, we started at 37,895. And currently we are at 38,855. So we continue to move up. And then our other channel, which I haven't updated, my apologies, but we started at 6,949 and now we're at 7,139. So we're moving on up. So thank you, my dear, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We will be back in 2 weeks. Next week, Caroline will be doing her Talking Heads episode. So we look forward to that. So let's take a listen to our sponsors, and we'll be back with our next show. See y'all later. Bye. Bye-bye. This program has been brought to you in part by Zane Carson Carruth, etiquette and protocol expert, international award-winning author, television show host, and philanthropist. Thank you to Zane, our official diamond sponsor for USA Global TV and Radio in partnership with E360 TV. Zane is the author of the world's first tooth fairy ever, as well as many other children's books. She's also the television host of Elegance, Polished Demeanor, and Posh Living, seen on USA Global TV and Radio.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Caruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating more memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Abella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book Abella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Abella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.
To learn more about Zane, contact her through her website, zanecaruth.com, ZANECARRUTH.com. Order Zane's books and merchandise. Contact her about being a keynote speaker at your next event.